I'm not the most adventurous.
Can I sell you guys on it? Because it's one of my favorite
I'm
things.
already sold, but yeah, go ahead.
I know I
guess, how am I going to sell it better than Michelle Zauner?
Right.
I'll eat anything but weird meats. That's what I meant. No weird meats. I'm out.
Welcome to Rock and Roll Book Club, where we discuss books by and about musicians in the music business. I'm Dave, and on this episode, my co-host Shelley, Jennifer, and I are discussing Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Michelle is best known for her band Japanese Breakfast, and H Mart is her first book. The memoir tells the story of a young girl growing up confused and somewhat insecure as she grapples with being both Korean and American and trying to figure out where she fits in. And Michelle's life changed dramatically when her mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer while Michelle was in her early 20s. She completely upended her life and moved back home to take care of her mother. This experience proved to be both extremely sad and life-altering. While caring for her mother, she learned to embrace her Korean side by diving into cooking the many Korean delicacies her mother made for her when she was young. Food is a huge part of this book, as it is a huge part of culture and family. Michelle describes in vivid detail how many of her favorite dishes are prepared. It will no doubt make the reader crave some of this food. Now, on a side note, your host took a field trip to a Korean restaurant to try and sample some of the delicious food described in the book. Check back soon to see the video. Now, after her mother's passing, Michelle embarked on her music career full-time with Japanese Breakfast. Her debut album, Psychopomp, a record mostly about Michelle's grief about her mother, was met with instant success. All of her subsequent albums have been even more popular. Recently, Japanese Breakfast released For Melancholy Brunettes and Sad Women to much critical acclaim. Now make sure you're subscribed to the channel, hit that notification bell, and thanks as always for watching Rock and Roll Book Club. Hey everybody, welcome to Rock and Roll Book Club, episode number 19. I am Dave. I'm here with my co-hosts Jen and Shelley, and we are talking about the book Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner, who is also known from her band Japanese Breakfast. She's probably better known for Japanese Breakfast than just by her name. Welcome, everybody. Thanks a lot for checking out the show. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss a future episode. Hit your notification bell so you get notified. We're getting that out of the way early just in case you don't make it to the end, which would be ill-advised because it's very, very good. We've backloaded and put a lot of great stuff at the very end of the video. So just You've been warned. So we're doing the book Crying in H Mart. This was my pick this time. I've been wanting to read this since it came out really in 2021, 2022 or so, around then. And I bought the book, and it's just been sitting on my shelf waiting for the right opportunity for me to read. Michelle Zauner, of course, besides being the author of Crying in H Mart, is a musician, singer-songwriter, guitar player, multi-instrumentalist. Her current band is the band Japanese Breakfast. Though I should point out that I feel like Japanese Breakfast is a band in name only, because although you don't refer to her as Japanese Breakfast, she is the leader of the band. She writes the songs. She's the persona of what the band is. Like you can get rid of the drummer, but you can't get rid of Michelle Zauner. So she is essentially Japanese Breakfast. Before she formed Japanese Breakfast, she was in a band called Little Big League when she was an aspiring musician from Philadelphia. She's not really, you don't think of her as being affiliated with Philly, but she actually was. And she broke up that band when she found out that her mother was terminally ill, and she left Philadelphia and moved to Oregon, where her parents lived. After her mother died, and that's not a spoiler because that's ultimately what the book is about. We'll get to that. She did start writing music, and she chose the name Japanese Breakfast, and had almost instant success when she put her first album, Psychopomp, out in 2016. And it's been nothing but great music and fantastic reviews and critical acclaim and everything ever since then. She's been on a massive upward trajectory. I'm a huge fan of her music. And, she definitely has some competition here, whether she wants to be a writer or a musician, because she excels at both, obviously.
Yeah, she's in the Arenda Fink category. Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
Arenda.
I mean, people who are extremely talented and then they just try writing and they're like awesome at it. I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. As a writer, I'm like, damn it. Why can't I just be like suddenly awesome at music?
Exactly. All of a sudden, Shelley picks up a guitar and is like Eddie Van Halen over there, just out of nowhere. That would be great.
Just crushing it. I do want to learn to play the guitar. So who knows? Maybe
it could happen. It could happen.
Maybe I'm the next Arenda Fink and Michelle Zauner. Doubtful, but a girl can dream.
But it could. You never know.
I'm just going to say quickly, the last 3 books we've read have, all about women, which, I'll address that a little bit later, but they've been really well written. Now, before that, it was Alex Van Halen, and he tried. So I'm going to give him an honorable mention.
Yeah. We all like the way he told the story. He wasn't exactly like, Edgar Allan Poe or anything, but he told the story well. It was fun to listen to / read or whatever.
Like all of his apologies at the end of the chapter. Sorry, Dave. Whoops.
Yeah, we're still buds though, man. Yeah, it was pretty good. No, we've been on a roll of some very different kinds of books. And as I said to you guys off air before we started recording, I had no idea how sad and depressing this book was going to be. I really just didn't know. I mean, I knew roughly what it was about, the gist of it, which we'll talk about in a second, but I did not know exactly the level of detail that it was going to get into. And it was very, very hard to read at times.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
Definitely my introduction. I know a handful of the songs, but I had to kind of put it all together that it was her once I pulled up the Spotify and, went through everything. But I didn't know much. I've seen this book for years. I've seen it like in bookstores, online. I'm like, I want to read that someday. So we read it. So my impression was very little other than a few songs.
Okay. Shelley?
So this is actually the second time I've read the book. I read it closer to when it came out, and I did not know anything about her prior to that. I had heard of Japanese Breakfast. I hadn't listened to them yet, but after reading the book, I did listen to them, and I really like their music, her music. So I came in the second time knowing a little bit more about her, and I don't know. It's amazing how much I forgot between the first reading and the second reading.
Oh, it's good. It's almost like reading it for the first time.
I mean, well, you know what? Another thing that's interesting is the first time I read it, I read the hardback, and this time I listened to it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's more enjoyable to listen to it because you get her inflection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And to be honest, the first time I read it, I thought it was a little bit boring.
Well, what's interesting, there's so much talk about food, and we'll get into that, and all of the various foods that they make, her and her mother and her relatives and whatever. But like, if I were just reading that, because even though I'm sitting here holding the hardback, I listen to it, But just to hear the correct pronunciations of all those words, because I'd be so frustrated reading it and not knowing if I'm saying it correctly in my head or whatever. So just for that reason alone, and that she reads it very well, but I did like the audio, but I thought the food thing was the real key for me.
Oh yeah.
It was so great to hear her say those words and to hear like the beauty of the Korean language.
Yeah,
I really liked that part too. Yeah.
So my impression was that I was a fan of her music prior to reading the book. Like I said, I've held on to the book for a couple years. I never read it. I wanted to. And I've become a pretty big fan of her music over the last few years. Jubilee was the first one that I really heard. And then of course she has her new one. And then I went back and got the Soft Sounds from Another Planet, which is my favorite. That was her sort of sci-fi dream pop album. But no, I'm a fan, and I felt like this book would be very good. The benefit of it being out for a couple of years is now I know how praised and everybody seems to love it, and it got reviewed extremely well, and there was talk of it being made into a movie. And I saw an interview with Michelle Zauner recently where she said that might not be happening anymore. before we get into the book, let's just address what is H Mart. For those that don't know, because we don't have one in Omaha where the three of us are.
God, I wish we did.
H Mart is a Korean/Asian grocery store and restaurant that it's mostly Korean, but it does have other Asian foods in there. It's a massive grocery store. It basically is located in bigger cities like San Francisco, LA, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, where there are the largest percentage of Asian Americans living there. But yeah, that's where you would get all the ingredients to make traditional Korean food. It also was a restaurant, so it was a place to go and socially hang out with other people who were like you. When you are the small minority in your community and you go to the H Mart and you're like the major majority, I liken it to when you're Jewish in America, you're 2% of the population. You visit Israel and you're 98% of the population. So all of a sudden it's like a totally different vibe. You just never experienced that. I imagine that's similar to maybe the H Mart or going to Korea would be the real key there. But so H Mart is a famous Korean grocery store, and the book does talk a lot about food and Korean culture. So it is relevant to know what H Mart is in case people were unaware.
Did anybody feel hungry every time they looked at the front of the book?
Oh,
I'm like,
yes.
can I have that for dinner?
I want to try Korean food. I mean, I have a question later on about it, but like I don't think I've had Korean food.
Oh, Dave.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to lump it in with all other Asian food, but I've tried almost everywhere else. I've tried Thai, I've tried Chinese, I've tried Japanese, I've tried Vietnamese. I've had, all sorts of other stuff. Korean, I don't think I've ever had.
Oh, it's so good.
We should do a side video, a field trip, and go to a Korean restaurant here in town.
I'm completely game.
Okay. What is this book really about? Because it's not really about her music career, and it's not about her creating this amazing music and how she does it or whatever. She doesn't, what is this book really about? What would you guys say? Who wants to go first?
I think that the place my brain goes first is that it's about her relationship with her mom and how it changed over time, and her dealing with the loss of her mother and how they grew closer through her terminal illness. But I think even on a deeper level, it is about her relationship with the Korean side of her, and learning more about her culture. She grew up in America and definitely visited Korea a bunch of times, but it really was about like connecting with that culture, and essentially through food. Which food is culture, and gosh, her descriptions of food are phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's like I should have just been eating Korean food the whole time.
Yeah, she'll say like what a dish is called, and then she'll actually say what's in it, and then to a certain degree almost how it's prepared. So it's almost like a culinary book at the same time, because she is explaining this stuff. It's not just, I threw on a kimchi and whatever. It's like, no. She's going to explain what the stuff is. And that made it so much more interesting to me, because I was coming from of knowing nothing. So I was like a completely blank slate with this stuff. It all sounded kind of interesting. Sometimes, and this is going to sound strange, but sometimes with Asian food, I don't always want to know what it is. I would just rather eat it. You know what I mean? Like if you tell me too much of what the ingredients are, maybe I might back off. And I think there was some scene in the book where I think they thought about her husband when they first met, and they went out to like H Mart or something to get something to eat. And she didn't want to tell him what was in the food at first, because she thought that would freak him out. But it turns out he didn't mind it. He didn't care. He wanted to know what was in it. Which is, I think, unusual for most people. I would not want to know. I know it was some sort of challenge because they were impressed that like Peter, her husband, boyfriend at the time, would try all this stuff. And
he was always game.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where they go to a Korean spa and with her mom and dad.
Yeah, I was just gonna
and you don't wear clothes in the spa, once you enter, you're nude. And They were like, is he going to do it? And he totally did it. Like Peter is game for everything, which I love.
Yeah.
And we should also
not
mention
only
Peter's
that,
the guitar player in the band.
correct. He had
Yeah.
just met Michelle's parents like the day before, and now they were going to the spa where they had to get naked, and they separated off the genders, but like you're still getting naked next to the dad of your girlfriend or whatever who you just met, and now you're sitting there in the spa naked with them. It's like it's so awkward, but hey, that's the culture. He was game. He was about it.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Shelley, that it really is about her culture. Overall, you'd say, well, it's about Michelle Zauner and the death of her mother in her 20s, and you know how difficult that was, and the grief that she experienced, and all that. And that is a massive part of it for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But her connecting with her Korean culture really was, because it seems like she did sort of try. You get into the book, and it's like, to a certain degree, she didn't want to be Korean, and she kind of rejected that part of herself as a child. You don't want to be different from other people. She was the only Asian kid in her town. She liked the fact that sometimes she pass for white to some people. But as time went on, and she really did start to connect with her Korean side. She really wanted to be identified as Korean and not seen as white. And not just from white people like us, where we would say, she looks Korean, but like to actual Korean people who really know the difference because all they see are Korean people. So it was a different turning of things, and it was a sort of an acceptance of who she was and a desire to really, really delve into it and to make it a big part of her life. Because I guess she sort of fought against it most of her life. That was a big conflict with her mother, who wanted her to have a more traditional growing up and whatever. And Michelle was a bit of a rebel as a kid, and did not conform and did not, do things to please her parents. She did it her way, but ultimately she circled back, corporate speak. And
well, I think that her mother's death was really the impetus for connecting with her Korean culture.
Yeah.
So, she began to cook for her mother because her mother was ill and with stage 4 cancer. Was it stomach cancer initially?
Pancreatic cancer.
Okay.
I thought it was
Pancreatic cancer.
Bowel? No, Dave knows.
It was the pancreas. That's close to your stomach, isn't it? I'm not a doctor.
Yeah, it's like right above your stomach. So as she's cooking for her and realizing that, her mother is a conduit to that culture and she's about to lose her, it was like, oh boy, I better get on it in a way, and food was a really important way for her to do that. And I love that.
Well, and one of the saddest, there's so many sad aspects to the book, but one of the sad ones just for me is that her mother never got to see Michelle as a success.
Yeah.
Right? Like she was just this indie nobody who was in this little big league band, and she broke it up because their mother was sick or whatever. And they were largely, I mean, I am immersed in that world, and I'd never heard of them until, Japanese Breakfast came out. And then it was like, oh, she had this other band. So the fact that she's now very successful and she tours around the world and does all these things, but her mother never got to see that, never got to see that she wasn't just fucking around and she wasn't just being rebellious for rebellion's sake or whatever. I mean, she does have a tremendous amount of talent. So I felt that was pretty sad because her mother never saw that.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting how, she talked a lot about how her mother criticized her a lot as a child. And then when she got sick, that dynamic really changed, where she softened with her and the mom softened with Michelle, but also Michelle started to appreciate how her mother used to, touch her and fix her hair or, whatever, and kind of miss that. And I think it is really interesting how an illness can change that dynamic, and it can knock people out of the routine and start to see things in a much different perspective.
Yeah.
So my mom died of ovarian cancer, and so I can identify a lot with what Michelle went through. my mom's cancer was, it was about, she battled it for about 18 months before she passed away. And, yeah, you know, like there was a part where she was talking about how, um, I think it was that she wanted to lose weight just so she could like be experiencing something similar to her mom. And like, I remember feeling that way of like, I just wish there was a way we could go through this together. And, you know, like that we could be doing it at the same time instead of her, you know, really just she's not battling on her own, but none of us could understand, you know, what she was going through completely. And so it was really interesting for me to read it. I think when I read this book the first time, my dad had just died. So it was, I think I was just kind of sensitive. And maybe that's why I was just like, this is boring. I've had plenty of this in my life and I'm over it. And now that I've got a little bit of distance from that, it was more interesting. But I can say that I really did relate to a lot of the things she talked about in terms of, you know, going through that illness with her mom.
Food is a big part of the book, and in many ways, it's her strongest link to her mother, to her Korean culture. Wondering, let's get into this. Have you ever had Korean food, and what emotions came to mind with all this descriptions of food? We kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's really delve into the food part. I will say that I have never had Korean food. I want to. I am very interested, more so because of the book too. I mean, you know, I would have probably tried it eventually anyways, but I just never have. Honestly, didn't even know we had a Korean restaurant in Omaha. That just shows how, you know, lost I am. I didn't even know that we had one, or maybe even more than one. I don't know. I know we have at least 3 Asian grocery stores in Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
But that would require me knowing how to cook. So if I went there, I'd have to buy ingredients and then know how to make them and stuff. And I don't know. So I'd have to go to an actual restaurant where they know how to make it. But it, as we said, it really was her strongest link to her mother and reconnecting to her family in Korea, her Korean culture. It's such a huge part of the social life, especially, I imagine, being part of an immigrant community, or at least in a minority community where you are a very small group of the population, that having this shared thing of like going to this H Mart or going, you know, or sharing this kinds of food would be really significant. So I certainly got that.
Jen, have you had Korean food?
I know I have in some way, shape, or form, without a doubt. But I'm not the most adventurous.
Can I sell you guys on it? Because it's one of my favorite things.
I'm already sold, but yeah, go ahead.
I know I've had.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, how am I going to sell it better than Michelle Zauner?
Right.
I'll eat anything but weird meats. That's what I meant. No weird meats. I'm out.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. No. There's
no weird
normal meats. What I love about it is that, okay, so my first exposure to Korean food was, it was weird. When I lived in Providence, there was a restaurant that served Korean food and sushi, which was like awesome because I'm like, I love this. But my first exposure to it was ordering bibimbap, which is a very, like, that's probably one of the more well-known Korean dishes. And it's rice, and you can get it with meat and vegetables, but it comes in this like cast iron pot that's really, really, really hot. And so the rice like crisps up on the bottom.
Yeah.
And then they like break an egg on top, and then you like mix it all together and the egg cooks, and it's so good. But the other really cool thing is that, and I forget the word for it, she uses it in the book, but you get all these other little dishes like bean sprouts and the kimchi and the potatoes and
is it banchan? It says small side dishes, kimchi, pickled vegetables, etc.
Yeah. Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got that list. I've got that list open that you sent about Korean dishes and stuff mentioned in the book.
Radishes.
So, those like I got that up right here.
Yeah.
Thank you, ChatGPT.
But I
Yeah. So
would
for
say
me, when I was reading this book and she's describing these dishes, I'm just like salivating. 'Cause
Yes, I didn't know
can I
what it
eat all
was,
of
but
this, please?
I can relate to the cooking is family and to being around people that you know. I mean, I don't cook, and so that was the hard part for me to relate to the putting all the ingredients, because I don't give a shit what it is. Just tell me when it's finished, and then I'll come get some, because I just don't cook. I don't have the patience for it. I thought about taking cooking classes at one point, and I thought, you know what? I don't even want to eat whatever I would make. I don't think it would be good. I would just like to go with someone else,
Just throw it in the towel. Forget it.
Yeah, look, some people, you got to know what your strengths are, and mine is not cooking.
Mine's not either. Mine's not
Oh,
either.
I love cooking,
No,
but I
I'm
came from a
You're good
family that
cook,
loved to cook.
but you're good at it, so that's why. I mean,
Oh, thanks.
not good.
I actually have a cookbook called Korean Vegan. So I've made a bunch of Korean dishes out of that, and they have all been amazingly delicious because of the recipes, not because of my skills.
Right.
I don't know, Shelley. Give yourself some credit.
In addition to the food and everything, it's not just about her mother dying and then her having this grief afterwards. There's a period where her mother finds out that she is sick, and then of course there's the second opinion, and then the talk about treatment, and then the treatment begins. And so there's like a good 2 years or something of this period. So she is becomes a caregiver for her mother, which is a very unique experience. I'm not exactly there in my situation, but I do feel like I care for my parents a lot more than I ever did. And they're in their 80s. But again, they're not dying from cancer, so it's a little bit different. I don't want to try to assume I'm in that same situation, but it was a really difficult part of the book for me to read personally. And I thought, what were the most significant sort of thought-provoking kind of concepts about that part of the story about her becoming her mother's caregiver, and also the weird attitude that her dad had. He wasn't he didn't care, but he just didn't know what to do, and so just did nothing, and then let Michelle do everything. And then that one relative who moved up from, I think, Georgia or something, to stay with them for a month or two. So that was just weird. I don't know. What did you guys think were the most significant parts? I mean, it makes me sad. The whole section is just really
it was like a bulk of the book, and it was really sad.
Yeah.
I think what happened in the time where she started becoming the caretaker, I think she also embraced every quirk that her mother had. I think she embraced things about herself and her culture and even her family and her aunts, and just saying this is what I should be doing. I think she just went all in to do what she had to do, and I think along the way she learned so much about herself and who she is. So that's where I'm at, guys.
Yeah, that seems like it's a silver lining of that situation. And you kind of, you don't normally think that there are silver linings from having a family member die of cancer, and they can be really hard to find, but they do exist. And I think that was one of them for her.
Yeah.
It's funny though, Dave, that you mentioned her dad, that when you asked about, what are our thoughts on that section, that was the first thing that came to mind to me was, just this disconnect that was there with her dad, and that they're estranged now, and he just pieced out to Thailand and whatever. And also sort of his lack of ability to throw himself into it the way that Michelle did.
I mean, I have no doubt there was love there. I mean, it's not like there was a bad marriage or anything, but I just think he was not constitutionally made up well enough to deal with that, and that was he was just tuning out because he couldn't handle it. And if Michelle hadn't been there, what the hell would have happened? I mean, it would have been just a nightmare. I mean, it would be so hard to have dealt with that if Michelle wasn't there to help.
And I think people read that as when a person can't be there and throw themselves in, I think a lot of people read it as they don't care enough. But it's sometimes because they care so much that they're just frozen, and it's just so scary and so sad that it renders them kind of useless because they're just so caught up in just the emotion of it all, whether they show that or not.
Yeah. I think that was definitely his case.
That's what it seemed like. And on a personal level, it made me extremely grateful for how my dad dealt with my mom's illness, which was amazing. I mean, I always was, but my dad did a great job, and it was still hard for everybody. You know, it was still hard for me and
there's
my brother.
And there's no easy way, but
no, but Michelle, what she went through is incredibly, incredibly hard.
She put her entire life on hold. She broke up her band, Little Big League, moved from Philadelphia back to Oregon. And she's like, I'm doing this. I'm not listening to anyone else say, no, don't do this. Don't, go get a job in New York or whatever she was going to do. And she was just like, no, this is what I'm going to do. Her relationship with her mother changed because of that whole experience and her passing and everything. But how did it change with her father? Like, that relationship was always kind of weird, and we touched on it a little bit with her wondering what would happen to her dad. Would he marry another woman? Would it be an Asian woman? Is he going to do that? What's he going to do? And she learned certain things about her father, that he had had sort of a long-term thing with a prostitute that none of them knew. I can't even remember how she found out, but I mean, it was like she was going through his stuff.
I think she saw emails or something.
Was it an email?
Yeah.
Of him arranging a date.
It was on his computer. It was on his computer, and she found out that he was seeing escorts or whatever. And that sort of changed her perspective on her father a little bit. And some lot of other things. So I think that whole process of being there for those last 2 years, taking that final trip to Korea with the mother and father and all of that, I mean, it definitely changed their relationship, but I think it was positive with her mother in terms of coming to grips with all of the conflicts that they'd had in the past. But the father, it seemed like it did kind of alter the relationship in a way that really was never the same.
I agree. It's with grief, it can, especially when the central figure of a family is no longer there, it can either bring a family closer or it can tear them apart. I think because people grieve so differently, and you miss that person so much, and you just feel like they're not, this person's not grieving right, or I wish that they understood, why I'm grieving this way or whatever. And I'm not saying that was the case for my family. It wasn't. I've just seen it happen with other families. And it definitely happened with her and her dad. And I think it was because they just didn't have that solid foundation. I mean, he had worked so much and wasn't around a lot, and she was always with her mom. And, if you don't have the solid foundation when things fall apart, it's easy.
But I don't think he had a solid relation, like a family outside of, like, an extended family. We knew he had a brother, and then he worked for his brother's business, and then he eventually took it over. But you don't hear a lot of talk about visiting with cousins and relatives on that side. So maybe he really didn't have a family. So when his wife died, to him, that was it. Like, I don't have anyone else here. Like, I'm out.
That is how it seems. Yeah.
Yeah. Ignoring the fact that he has a daughter who's there. You didn't lose your daughter. She's still there. But I felt like he just sort of like, I have nothing else. There's nothing for me here. I spent the last 30 years living with a Korean woman. I know a lot about the culture. I love all the foods, etc. Blah, blah, blah. So then he goes to Thailand, which is a completely different country. But
his character is sad, and it's in his own right.
Yes.
Struggling with addiction and all of that. And then, I don't know. It just feels like there's an emptiness in him to me.
I agree.
Yeah. Very weird contrast. I mean, you never know the inner workings of anyone's relationship, right? You just don't know what it's really like. What do people really see in one another? But they just seem like such an odd pair, like this big brute American guy and this like really sort of dainty Korean woman, very traditional, very whatever. And they just seemed like an odd couple, but it worked for 30 years.
And how it really did seem like she was trying to be the one that helped the most and almost in competition with Michelle.
Like her mom did it all, and then she's
Yeah.
trying to step in.
She's trying to learn it and everything, and
criticize.
she tried not. I mean, I remember she was saying there was some dish, I can't remember which one it was, but she really wanted to make it for her mom, and she really wanted it to be right and whatever. And then her mom wouldn't eat it because, I mean, she couldn't because I think she was so sick or whatever. But it was just like, yeah, that was really important to her. And that friend was just like, hey, look, this is my job. Like, back off.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and also the friend just out of the blue shaved her head in solidarity with Michelle's mom.
That was a little.
Yeah, that was a little.
That was when I was like, okay, lady, that's not cool. Like, no, that's something that the daughter does, or you all do together,
right.
You know, or you ask the daughter if it's okay. You know, I don't know. That just seemed like she was trying to one up Michelle to me.
Yeah, agreed.
And in a situation like this, that's so fucking petty. It's like, dude, who gives a shit about you? Like, we're here because of my dying mom. Like, don't compete with me. Yeah. And I think Michelle felt weird, or not weird, bad that she kind of wanted her to leave. But
yeah,
I think anyone in that situation would want her to leave too.
I mean, we wanted her to leave, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's for the best.
Back off, bitch.
I mean, I know that she, in her mind, she was being helpful and probably did provide some help, but it's like, yeah, a month, 2 months, whatever, how long she was there, it's like, that's a bit much.
And no one told her to go.
I know.
Yeah, because she was so helpful.
She was helpful. I mean, you know, it gave Michelle an opportunity to take a break. The dad wasn't filling in. So, I mean, in order for Michelle to get like an afternoon to just chill or something, she needed that person there. I mean, that woman needed to be there. So she provided something. I mean, yeah, she just kind of wore out her welcome, I guess. I mean, is what you would say.
Really.
You know? Let's change topics a little bit. And let's say, a little bit. How much do you think Michelle's creativity, meaning her music, her writing, her other stuff, you know, how much did that play a role in her healing? And I will start by saying a tremendous amount.
Mm-hmm.
The first Japanese breakfast album, Psycho Bomb, is almost all grief songs about, because it was right after her mother died. These were the songs that she created immediately afterwards. So obviously that was a topic that was fresh on her mind. It addressed some other things too, but I think she had to step up. Like, you listen to those older albums from her first band and they were good, right? But I think that whole experience and really sort of deciding that, like, she was going to quit the whole music thing and get a regular job. And then she took off 2 years to go live with, help her mom. I mean, and then she finally made some of the best stuff she's ever made immediately after that experience. So I think it was huge. And I don't know if you ever really heal from what happened with her mother dying and, you know, but I think it did help towards healing. I mean, she was able to make a happy album 2 albums later, you know, where it's like, okay, I've been dwelling in this sadness and negativity and all this grief. And now I just would like to do something fun. And I think if you weren't healed to some degree, you couldn't have done that. And she wouldn't have made the Jubilee album. Mm-hmm. That was her breakthrough to mass success and everything.
I think so too. I think also the experience probably helped her develop as a musician, because she had to grow up really fast when that happened. I mean, she was only 25. That's so young. And she had to show up and be an adult. And at least in my own experience, and not to keep going back to my stuff, it's not about me, but I only say that because
well, you're the only one of us that has had a similar experience to what Michelle Zauner talks about in the book. So you feel free to, you know, comment however you want. I mean, you know.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. For me, it was I don't even know how to put it into words exactly, but there's a huge perspective shift when someone that's central to your life passes away. And for me, I started to just see things differently and appreciate certain things differently. Of course, you know, after I mean, you don't do that right away. There's the big grief part that sucks real bad. But it forces growth. And so in some ways, I'm not really surprised that all of a sudden her music became this richer sounding, music that had more depth than before, because she as a person probably had more depth.
And I think she was also, after that experience, maybe it changed her in the sense that it freed her creatively. Like the music of Japanese Breakfast is markedly different than her previous band. And it's better in my opinion. And like I was talking about that one song where she re-recorded it and it's just so much better. I think she stopped getting in her head about it and just like did it and just created and was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to be so caught up in, is it indie? Is it this? Is it that? Is it hip to these people or with that people? She did her own thing. It's completely unique sounding. I can't think of who Japanese Breakfast necessarily sounds like. She has her own unique way of singing, her expressions, the way she phrases the words and everything. And the music is different. And it's just, it's hard to describe what it even is.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of it because she just was freed creatively.
And also just more in touch with her feelings. Like her music became an outlet for those feelings.
Yeah.
And in some ways I could see that resulting in a more authentic product, instead of trying to be something else, you just are what you are. And usually when artists can get to that point, that's when they're successful.
Favorite parts of the book was her and her mother and like the QVC products, so the Home Shopping Network products.
All the quirky things about her mom. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love that part, and just like that Korean beauty and everything that she would try to use to remedy anything everywhere, from too thin a lips to, a freaking dry hair, I mean, she was amazing. I loved that part. I loved her explanations of her mother. To me, that was my favorite part of the book. Her mother was just such a character and just so exactly who she was.
Fierce.
Confident, fierce, and
did not
tough.
care what anyone else.
And moisturized. That's very important.
Yeah, she loved the moisturizer. Had to have a lot of
As do I.
creams.
As do I.
A lot of creams.
And I love that. And just years and just learning so much about products and the culture and the health and just what you do to make yourself better. I just love getting to know her mother. That's my favorite.
Yeah. The thing that I keep thinking about is, and this is just a little scene, but when she started touring, and headlining, she was talking to her Korean family because they were going to play in Korea, and her Korean family was like, so how does this work? Like,
who pays you? How do you get paid? That was
do you have an office? And so they all go to see her play in Seoul, and I believe it's at the end she acknowledges them and says, "Welcome to my office." And I just thought that was so clever, and just like what a special moment that is. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that really stood out to me as a bright, shiny spot.
Yeah, I wanted to look for more musical things or to have that as my favorite. But the truth is, I think that caregiving part was, I mean, I don't have a specific incident or whatever, but it's just like maybe partly because I'm cruising up to that point with my folks because they're getting so old and I'm going to have to start doing this sort of thing. But it just really connected with me, and it made me, appreciative that they're not like sick, dying. They're just getting very old. And I guess I sort of felt like, okay, well, that's a positive way to spin it. I mean, it's not like, what happens with Michelle, but I just think that whole side part of the book, which is a good third of the book probably is about that, or a little more. But that section was really the most significant for me.
Yeah.
That is the thing that I remembered, that I did remember after reading the first book, when I started the second time, was that whole part about her mom being sick and also the connection with food, like those were the two things that stayed with me about the book. I can't say the caregiving part was my favorite part. I think it was the most important part.
Yeah.
But not my favorite because it is, close to home and just tough.
Yeah.
And I think it's tough for anybody, whether you've been through it or not. It's a tough part of the book to read because it's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if there were more about the music, I would have chosen my favorite part as being anything about the music. But her musical stuff is very, very little in this book. I think we said something about with Arenda Fink, like that was the least rock and roll book in our rock and roll book club. I think this now it takes the cake.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, removing Ione Skye because she wasn't a rocker, anyways. But let's say of all the musicians and stuff, this was the least rock and roll book that we've done for Rock and Roll Book Club so far, because there was very little mention of it.
She knew that her mom's death was coming soon, and she said to Peter, "We should get married." And I love the relationship with her and Peter. They met through friends. Then she got him a job at the Mexican restaurant she worked at and crushed on him the whole time. And he wasn't picking up what she was putting down.
Oh, the accident.
And then he gets in the motorcycle accident and
so
she shows up, and that's when it just all clicks and the fireworks begin, which I just love that. And then, when she was like, "We should get married. Like, I want my mom to be there at my wedding." And she said, "If this is something you think we're going to do in the next 5 years, let's just do it now." And so they did. And excuse me, they're still together. And it's just, I love the fact that, that could have been a recipe for disaster. Like, let's get married because my mom's dying.
And then she brought him into Japanese Breakfast because he wasn't on the first record at the beginning. He still had his job. And then once she got a little more popular and they could both afford to not have day jobs, then she brought him into the band at that point, and he's been in the band ever since.
Yeah. So I just love their relationship.
Same.
Yeah. It's very good. It's and that guy was so game for anything. I mean, he just embraced the whole Korean thing too. He would try any food. He's, all of the stuff like we were talking about earlier. Like he's the right person for Michelle Zauner. And I actually saw her do an interview on Canadian Broadcasting just from a couple days ago, who said that she has such extreme anxiety almost at all times that her relationship with Peter is so good because he has none.
Yeah, I watched
He's over here.
What?
You know what my reaction was to that? Was, wait, there are people that have basically no anxiety. I'm like, that's so unfair.
I married him.
Yeah.
Oh,
to balance
you. Yeah. Wow, that's so great.
He's the same thing.
Yeah, he totally does. Yes. Yeah. So I get that relationship, but.
Shelley, do you need a minute?
Dave, I'd like to take a minute.
Okay, feel free. Take a minute.
Should I take the whole minute?
Take all of it. Take two if you need.
Dear God, is it my birthday? In all seriousness, my minute is honestly just to acknowledge anyone that's going through something like this with a loved one, and this includes you, Dave, and all the things that you do for your parents, and how hard it is to be a caretaker, and how hard it is to see someone you love being torn away from you, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I guess I just want to say, like, hang in there to anybody that's dealing with that. And I wish I could fix it for you, but there is beauty on the other side. And, the surprising thing for me in losing both of my parents, both times, I was really amazed at how much love came about, as a result of their passing. And it seems completely counterintuitive, but there is something kind of beautiful about it. And yeah, so hang in there. I can talk about it now without crying. Look at me.
Yeah.
So, you'll get there. It's time heals. And I think that I was just saying to somebody the other day that, when you lose someone like that, your grief is way up here, and your gratitude is like here, and everything feels unfair, and it is, and it sucks. But over time, that harsh feeling of the grief starts to trade places with the gratitude for the person or people that you loved. And you can, talk about them, and it makes you happy, and remember them and it makes you happy. And that anybody's that's dealing with this, you'll get to that place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Therapy helps. I feel like this is unfair to say. I don't feel like there were a lot of wolves
There weren't really.
in the book. It's really hard to say. This is going to sound shitty, but I think the wolf is her dad.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Because, we do find out that Michelle wasn't the only one keeping the secret about his affairs. His mom or his wife knew also, but never told Michelle. And they each kept that secret to themselves, to spare each other's feelings, which I thought was kind of beautiful, but also how hard that would be.
Mm-hmm.
The lamb is Peter, sweet, sweet Peter. What a dream. He can also translate texts in other languages. Like, that was what he was doing for a job for a while. I'm like, this dude's smart. He's so nice. He's so caring.
Peter.
He's up for anything. I mean, what else do you want in a partner?
Yeah.
And he can play the guitar.
Play the guitar.
He's in your band. I mean, that's pretty great. What I hope is the ultimate survivor is Michelle's connection to her Korean culture. And Dave, you had shared with me and Jen that, or maybe it was just me, I don't remember, that she had taken a year off to go to Korea and become fluent in the language. I'm sure she did a ton of cooking.
Completely immersive in it. Yeah, that was her thing, was to be completely immersive in the culture.
Yeah.
Not speak English for the entire year she was there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, what an amazing thing to do.
Yeah. She's awesome.
She is awesome.
Yeah.
Really and I do hope a movie is made of this book. I think it would be interesting. It would be sad, and they'll probably have no rock and roll in it, but I think it would still be very interesting. And I hope a movie is made so other people who don't read the book will see that Michelle Zauner is like a really talented writer as well. So
yeah. Jen, we should add her to our BFFs list.
We should.
Arenda's on there. Liz Fair is squarely not on it.
No, she's not one of your BFFs.
Nope. No,
okay, Jen, what about you? Wolf, Lamb, Ultimate Survivor.
I am honestly the exact same, except for the survivor. I was going to say Michelle, but Shelley and I can combo if you're comfortable with that.
Yes, because she is too. Yeah,
totally. Wolf is her dad. Peter is the lamb, and the survivor is Michelle.
Okay. Well, I'm similar, but it's slightly different. I would say the wolf is Cancer.
Oh, damn. Good one, Dave.
The lamb. Yeah, I could say Peter. I guess I would just say Peter. I don't have a strong one on the lamb because everybody's pretty much nice. You know what I mean? And I wasn't comfortable calling the dad the wolf because although he was sort of shitty in certain aspects, he wasn't abusive. He wasn't an asshole. He just was sort of
he was just absent.
He was just distant and so
he was
and
a
then
cheater.
ultimate and a cheater, sure, but I won't get into that one. I'm not going to try and defend him. Why is it my job? I'm not gonna. So no, sorry, Mr. Zauner, I'm not gonna saying anything. Ultimate Survivor, is Michelle Zauner and her talent. I mean, because it's like she could have just faded away and gotten an office job because if her mother hadn't gotten sick, that was going to be the agenda. Was as soon as the tour was ending with her band, she was going to go to New York, and she did go to New York and tried looking for office jobs. Like she might have never gone back to this. I mean, I kind of think she would have eventually because when you sort of pass on your dream and you go get the corporate job and then you realize after a few months, I can't do this till I'm 70. Like, and maybe you try it again. I don't know.
But she's so
But she-
talented. It was going to
Right.
prevail anyway. I mean, she's
Yeah.
just good.
So
Although per our conversation before, it did seem like her experience propelled her into creating, deeper music. And I think that, that is one of the silver linings of having someone pass away, is that, that can open you up to experiences and to do things that you wouldn't have done before. So
yeah,
I kind of wonder, I
I
really do wonder, if her mom hadn't died and she hadn't gone through this, would her music be as good as it is today? She might have been doing it, but I don't know if it would have been as good, and I don't know if she would be as famous.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you're right on that. I think there's no guarantees that it would have worked out the same way,
Yeah.
because that first album was just so personal and so intense and so unique. And she really did go from obscure nobody who was on the verge of getting an office job and quitting music altogether to being a buzz artist who was all of a sudden popular enough that you didn't need another job and you could go traveling around the world and doing all of those things. That's remarkable to have it happen that fast.
Yeah, it is.
So it definitely was a necessary component of her artistic success, I think.
I like her a lot. I love her music. I think she's great. I appreciate her telling her story once again. And, while it was, heavy and very sad, it was beautiful, and some beauty came out of it, including her relationship with Peter, including her music, including her love of, getting submerged in her culture again. I mean, I don't know. I loved it. Would I read another book? Yeah, but I can't go this sad again, guys.
Yeah. She needs to write a happy book next time.
Ugh.
No dying in the next book. So my impressions of her are, I like her even more. I mean, I only liked her music before. I didn't really know much about her talent as a writer. I mean, it was a New York Times bestseller and all of that, but until I actually read it and saw how good it was, now my impression is she's a brilliant writer, and her music is awesome too. So would I read another book by her? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would hope it would not be another book about grief, and it would be a little more upbeat.
My impression of her now is she's extremely talented. She's fierce. She's a person who can decide she wants to do something and do it, and she's not going to fail. She's going to keep going. I think she has a lot of tenacity and resilience, and I really admire her for that.
Yeah.
What's our next book?
Okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to do Kim Gordon, a girl in a band. So this is going to be good. Her and I kind of like maybe a little.
Yeah.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, okay. But I'm not that cool. So I think this will be a great read. I think we'll kind of start digging into some kind of punk that we've never really touched much on. I'm ready for something kind of gritty.
And that book, by the way, is a few years old, but it's just recently been revised with an updated chapter. So we're going to be including the extra chapter in the discussion, obviously. So that's what makes it kind of new. And of course, Kim was nominated for a Grammy for her last solo album, and it's like she had an awesome 2024.
Good.
Like for a woman who's 70 years old, she's up there doing trap music, which is like this real sort of underground kind of hip hop. And 70 years old and she's doing it, and it was so good. All these people were like I used to see these videos on TikTok about her. People were like, who the hell is this woman? She's 70. She's so awesome. Like they couldn't grasp the fact that like they'd never heard of her before. So she is now in this new generation of artists. I think Kim Gordon is awesome.
Yeah.
She's so
That's
cool.
gonna be great.
I was gonna say, like, after some of these books, the last few that we've read have been female focused, but we're gonna do just one more. And
More
then
women.
I think the next book needs to be like, whose pick is it? It's Shelley. It's yours.
Shelley.
No poets. No. No Liz Fair.
We need some degenerate rock and rollers or
We
something.
need some like
Ooh.
Vince Neil mashup with who's the other speaker? Oh, not John Paul Jones. Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did
Yeah.
they ever
If anybody,
collaborate?
if anybody has recommendations, give us your dirtiest, sleaziest rock and roll book you've read, and let's go.
Like Vince Neil. What was that woman's name? Penny. Wasn't she the one that would show up and give the crew blowjobs like all the
Oh
time?
yeah.
Like when Tommy was in the hospital.
Forget her name.
Here
Yeah.
she is 10 years later.
She just shows up.
I mean,
Penny climbs through a window, gives a blowjob, and then pieces out.
great,
Literally.
here's where you are. Yeah.
So thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Make sure that you are subscribed to our channel. Of course, we've got the Kim Gordon book coming up next month. I hope you really enjoyed this particular episode. And we all three were unanimous in our praise of Crying in H Mart. It was pretty fantastic.
A friend texted me a photo or a screenshot, and it had the graphic from our last book, and it said, and he said, I got this as a notification. And I just want to point out, and it made me really happy.
Oh, yay.
And I just wanted to point out that everyone who watches can get that same notification.
You get that same thrill.
Just like punch the bell, punch it, just
Mhm.
nail that bell.
And drop some books in too. We want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
leave
comment,
comments.
dudes.
We're like interacting with people. We're not.
Yeah, we do.
Mhm.
You may hear from all three of us.
You never know. All right, everybody.
All
We'll
right.
see you next month. Thanks.
Bye.
Maybe I'll do my hair like that. Okay. Bye, guys.
Do it.